everybody, and welcome to the Introduction to Virtual Work Experience webinar this morning. We haven't got everybody that we're expecting yet, so my colleague will be letting them in as the morning goes on. But to give you a brief overview of what we'll be covering. Okay, so just to give you a brief overview, we're going to be providing a LEP and school perspective as to why we're offering virtual work experience. We also have a guest speaker from Speakers of Schools joining us this morning to talk about the programme and the process we need to follow. At the end of the session, we'll be opening the floor to questions, so please don't hesitate in popping your questions in the chat function, and we'll come to those prior to the call to action, which we need you to adhere to. So it's not just me speaking to you this morning. I'm pleased to welcome my colleague Siobhan Flynn, who is the Programme Manager for Employment and Skills at the Solent LEP and also the Careers Hub Lead. We also have Dawn Ray, who is the Regional Lead for the South East from Speakers for Schools, and myself, Sarah Denham. I'm on the skills team here at the Solent LEP and your contact for virtual work experience. So first off, can I hand over to Siobhan, please?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. Before we sort of go into the sort of nuts and bolts of virtual work experience, I just thought it would be helpful if we just sort of set the scene a little bit about why we as the Solent LEP, really want to get involved in this space and provide opportunities for young people to experience the world of work while during their education. Ultimately, it's about getting our young students to be inspired and aspire to the great careers in the Solent. And quite often we find that they leave school not really understanding very many of the great jobs that exist out there, and some of the sort of skills and attributes that employers are looking for. And from a sort of broader economic development, perspective, we've got some structural issues, I would call them, around, what you've probably heard this, and it's something that you will all relate to in your organisations. But we have, an ageing population in terms of our workforce, and we need to replace people who are basically retiring with young people coming in and learning the skills and taking on those jobs. We also want our young people to really get a sense of what employers often call those sort of softer communication skills, social skills, team building, and we really feel that virtual work experience gives a real taster for young people to develop those skills. Dawn, who will speak a little bit later about the programme, and Dawn works with Speakers for Schools, and we're working very closely with them. But one of the messages that comes back from this work is the confidence in the young people as a part of taking part of the work experience. So there's a win there for the young people. We have a duty, I think, as well, to try and prevent long-term unemployment for young people. You will have perhaps picked up on the budget yesterday evening. The government and us and society, it's not a great, it has a long-term impact on young people who don't get into work and develop at an early stage. It has a long-term effect on their ability to earn, but it has a long-term effect on the ability of the economy to grow. So from the perspective of a young person, we want to support them to prevent them to become what was called NEETs, which is not in employment, education, training. But it's a good thing to do for the economy as well as the young person. We also have in the Solent relatively low attainment levels. This is around young people leaving school and college without the educational qualifications that perhaps the economy needs, shall we say. And one of the things we've found with virtual work experience and work experience in general and employer engagement in schools is, working with employers, young people can see the point of why they're learning and studying in school, and that has a knock-on effect to really improve performance and attainment and even attendance in school. So there's another reason why we think it's really, really important. And lastly, just to touch on the fact around skills mismatch. And we really need young people to understand the jobs that are available to them, and the types of careers that they can have, and have a sort of sense of that there are lots and lots of different sorts of jobs out there, and that their working life will take many twists and turns, and really to sort of start to understand that from an earlier age. So that's all I'm going to say, really. I'm going to sort of now hand over to Sarah, who's going to talk a little bit more about the actual virtual work experience, and what is the ask from employers to a certain extent, and then we'll pass over to Dawn, who's going to hopefully explain how easy it is really for employers to get involved. Speakers for Schools have been working with us very closely to sort of develop the programme, but they've actually bring a wealth of experience in this space, and there's a lot we can learn about doing it locally. So over to you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan. So just to give you a bit of context as to where we're at, we were approached last year by the Careers and Enterprise Company, as were many other hubs, to see how we could really support that lost learning in terms of work experience and employer engagement. And a priority for us, and obviously the LEP, is to keep it local, so local employers and local schools. And really, how could we move that forward? Hence why we're working with Speakers for Schools. But to develop those key employability skills. Siobhan referred to those softer skills, the communication, and really building that confidence of young people to talk to adults outside of their comfort zone, be that employers or even teachers within their schools for that matter. And I think at the moment, this digital and the advancement in technology and how things have moved forward really opens up an opportunity for us. I mean, all too often, health and safety restrictions have limited what young people can do. If you think about construction site or on the dock side, be it in a medical scenario, there's lots and lots of things we can be doing. And actually speaking to employers that have already participated in virtual work experience, they're now saying actually they're not that keen to go back to as things were, i.e. a 2-week face-to-face work experience, but actually considering more of a blended approach, a bit of a virtual, possibly a face-to-face encounter later on. So there's lots of opportunity, and more so for the employers supporting you to develop that offer, and how you can do it. And ultimately, is going back to what Siobhan was saying, you know, building your talent pipeline to replace those that staff, that workforce that you have that are actually leaving the market. So bringing that all together, hence why we're calling on you today, really. Now, we are looking to deliver the virtual work experience in the first week of May. That is the bank holiday on the 3rd. So between the 4th and the 7th of May. But I won't go into the detail. I'm going to hand over to Dawn, because she will give you the insight as to the process and the cycle that we need to be following with the support from Speakers for Schools and how that works with you. So welcome, Dawn.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to virtually see you all today. Yes, I'm just going to talk through some of the practicalities of how the work experience programme works, and also just give you a little bit of an insight to who we are in case some of you have not all Speakers for Schools. So it's a charity. We are a charity. We've been going 10 years. Our founder is Robert Peston, who is the ITN political lead, who spends lots of time quizzing Boris Johnson on the television pretty much on a daily basis. And our chair is Andrew Law, who is from the city. He's also the CEO of Caxton Associates, who are a trust fund who have very kindly decided to give rather a large sum of money to the charity to meet the missions that Robert Peston has set out for the next 3 years, with an ambitious aim of making opportunities available to 1 million young people over the course of the next 3 years. And we're moving pretty quickly towards that goal, which is really encouraging. a lot of this has already been touched on by Sarah and Siobhan. There's a lot of conversation, and it's not new, it's been going on for a number of years, about inequality when it comes to opportunities. There's a lot of deprivation in pockets of the country, and the southeast does not escape that. And the ethos behind the charity is about levelling the playing field, and it's about giving young people opportunities that wouldn't normally have them because they don't go to private paid for education. And there has been a lot of research over the years which has demonstrated that quite often it's the young people that come out of that privileged education that get the best opportunities and go on to get the better jobs. And what we're all about is trying to give everybody an equal opportunity to see what potential there is out there in terms of careers going forward, and also prior to that, perhaps where they need to be casting their thoughts about learning skills and applying for further education. So with regards to work experience, we've been offering this before COVID. COVID just heightened the fact that we could do it only online rather than virtually. So the two core propositions were insight days and an on-site placement, and we've now transferred that to an online environment where we still do insight days, and we also do virtual placements. And the difference fundamentally between the two is the insight day is a day largely following the timetable of a school day, providing an insight to an industry or a particular organisation. And we recommend combining some talks from different members across the organisation with some interactive project work, providing the employee the opportunity to give some feedback to the young person at the end of the day. That feedback is important, and that interactivity is important, because it's only through employing those types of activity and engagement do we have the opportunity to deliver Gatsby benchmarks. And for those of you who are familiar with Gatsby benchmarks, and more people are in the world of employment, these are a set of criteria that are listed out which detail certain aspects of a work experience that must be met to make it meaningful and personal to the individual. The virtual placement is more of a deep dive, following a similar kind of format to the Insight Day, but this has taken place over a number of days. So it gives employers the opportunity to really get into the detail of what their organisation does, to bring in more people and more departments, to perhaps do some live streaming of virtual tours around the workplace, or some more detailed work covering careers and interview guidance. And both of these opportunities are available as part of this pilot that we're running with the Solent LEP. So with regards to what we do as an organisation, it is about, with our engagement with employers, it gives you, the employers, the opportunity to, I guess, raise your brand awareness, get out there in the community, be seen and be heard, plant your name in front of young people with regards to potential talent pipeline for the future. And it also helps employers support their recruitment and CSR strategies. Quite often our employers find when they're bidding for work, they are required to demonstrate how they're giving back to the community. And this kind of programme is a perfect way to actually get involved in that. We're about inspiring young people into all manner of careers and industries, and we cover a huge variety of the length and breadth of the United Kingdom. From an employer's perspective, who are delivering the work experience, it's all about you drawing on the skills and enthusiasm of your staff. And you may already have staff that are operating as volunteers in the community, and some of them may even be STEM ambassadors, and participating in virtual work experience will actually count towards their hours being a STEM ambassador. And we've already kind of heard from Sarah and Siobhan earlier, but we're working in partnership with the Solent LEP, and this is all about helping them deliver their skills priority statements and the activities they're doing with their cornerstone employers and other employers in the region. So the programme that we are planning to run as a pilot will be for Year 10 students, 14 years old, across a number of Solent schools that are part of a multi-academy trust. As Sarah's mentioned, this is all going to happen during the first week of May, and we're inviting employers to participate in either an Insight Day or a multi-day work experience. We will broadly follow the school timetable, and as an indication, we recommend about 30 young people participating on each opportunity. So this is an example of what an Insight Day could look like, and I've kind of already alluded to the kind of structure that it might follow. We recommend following the school timetable as closely as possible, because students are disciplined and used to working within those timeframes. You need to introduce breaks throughout the day, because young people's attention span is not the greatest sometimes over long periods of time, and it's a good way for them to refresh themselves, but it's also a good way for you to take a break as an employer and actually prepare your work for the next session. So how we work is we are very much partners with the LEP. We work with the school, and we also work with the employers, and we work to provide you, we give you guidance, training and consultation around setting up, managing and delivering your work experience. And we can give you some pointers and examples of what a good work experience would look like to be engaging, and how to frame and how to advertise it, so that you can kind of make your work experience pop and come alive, so that it's attractive to the young person, so that it's young people like to be dazzled by technology or exciting activities, and it's important that you kind of bring out that flavor within your work experience, and every company has the opportunity to do that. It's just identifying the right hook. And in terms of managing the process, we have a couple of different software platforms that we use. So with regards to how setting up this process, there is obviously a time frame associated with all of this. And from the point that your work experience advertisement goes live to the point of the work experience actually going live itself, we like to allow about 6 weeks. Now, we are fast approaching that 6 weeks already, and that date of the 12th of March was originally the deadline we had set for advertisements going live. There is a little bit of wiggle room, but probably not huge amounts. So I won't pretend we've got weeks or months to still think about this. We do really need to get those work experience adverts live before schools break at the end of the month for the Easter holidays. Having said that, the preparing the advertisement is actually the easiest part, because it's just really gathering your thoughts as an employer as to what your work experience would actually look like. And we will give you the training to post that on our portal, which is really straightforward and intuitive. And once the advert's live, it basically goes back to the schools, who also need to register, and their young people need to register, so that they can see the opportunities and apply for them through the portal. Once they've made their applications, the school verifies the application, and it will then come to the employer through the same portal for you to select and approve your candidates. And then a week in advance of the work experience going live, all of the relevant passwords and communications are issued to the young people that will be taking part. So I mentioned our portal. We have a platform that allows us to promote, manage, and deliver work experience applications. Safeguarding is at the core of everything we do, and there's a lot of time spent making sure that safeguarding measures are in place. And as such, when we are working with data within the portal, some reassurance is that it's all hosted in Europe. It doesn't get transferred outside the EU. Some of it's hosted in the UK. And in terms of the information regarding the young people, we only provide access to key pertinent bits of information to the employer, because we don't provide individual personal information, so that they can't be identified up before they're actually on the work experience itself. So the portal has a number of different parts to it. It's seamless, and it allows you, the employer, to post your work experience opportunity. It allows the schools to register and to allocate responsibilities across the school to different members of staff. It also allows the schools to signpost opportunities to young people that they think might be interested. But once the school is registered, that's then the trigger for young people to be able to register. We don't allow anybody registering outside a school environment, and we don't accept any registrations with Hotmail addresses, so that we can actually control and protect people that are participating. Young people apply for the opportunities through the portal. You have the opportunity to ask some questions that you would like to get answers from to understand the motivation of those young people. And the schools have to approve every application before the portal sends it on to your inbox. You can see all of your applications, and through the portal you can approve. The next slide will actually show you a picture of what the dashboard looks like. So we have a number of features on the dashboard, which basically the first number is the number of work experience opportunities you would have live at any point in time. The second number is how many opportunities you might have had happening in the past. The purple number 3 with a purple box, shows how many actions as employer you need to take. Don't be frightened by that number. This dashboard is something that it belongs to Morgan Sindall, and they are one of our national partners and are doing hundreds and hundreds of work experiences across the country all the time. But when that says action, that's really about you. That's telling you that you've got applications sitting in your inbox that you have not actually looked at or done anything with. And then the last column shows how many applications you've had for your work experiences. All of these boxes that you see on this portal allow you to click through and drill down into more detail. This is just a screenshot of what a work experience opportunity ad would look like in our portal. I appreciate it's really small, but it's quite a long screen, and there are various other shots that go with it. But it basically gives you the opportunity to title what your work experience is about. It shows the dates, gives you some space to put copy to explain what you're going to be doing in that work experience. And I'm not talking finite detail, it's really just headlines about what you're trying to deliver. We can embed a link to YouTube if you've got a video that you want to show. And there's also the opportunity to bring through your branding and also illustrate some of the key areas, subject areas that this will be relevant to. Further down the screen, there's also a number of other boxes that come to view where you as an employer can tick boxes to illustrate what skills will be learnt on the work experience and the type of people or the type of interests that this work experience would be relevant for. And then on the second, the right-hand side image, there are 3 questions you'll see at the bottom. And these are questions that you can pose, as I said, asking about the motivation, about why someone wants to take part in this work experience, or even it just could be a random question that will just give you some insight to how that person's mind ticks. When you drill down through your dashboard, you can actually see the applications that have come through to you. And again, I know this is very small, but what this will tell you line by line is some details about the individuals that have applied. What you will see here is the age, whether it's male or female, the dates associated with the application. And then it will also bring through some information that the school or the young person has opted to provide, such as religious denomination, ethnicity, but also we populate the first 2 columns with a ranking according to level of need. And this is drawn through by an algorithm that runs in the back of our portal, drawn from information available in the public domain and also that the schools provide, which helps us rank schools according to the level of need and also the young people within the school. So if you as an employer particularly want to offer your opportunities to students or schools of a higher level of need, this is an indicator to show you where those young people come from. In terms of delivering the work experience, we've chosen to use Google Classrooms and Google Meet. Some of you might be familiar with that. It's our chosen platform because it has the best safeguarding measures. It allows you to really close the classroom environment and control it, but added to which it has a lot of functionality that you can adopt to deliver your work experience, to add to its interest and make it really engaging and interactive, you know, be it a poll or a quiz or delivering video or creating breakout rooms for smaller groups that you might want to work together to do a project. And with regards to the platform, we have the enterprise education version, and we provide Google licenses to employers that participate for the duration of the work experience. We also provide training, we provide supporting materials, and we have a team on hand to answer any questions, troubleshoot or problem solve if you get to that situation. And this is just an example of some of the employers that we're working with. It's not the finite list, it's those that have given us permission to share their names. But as you can see, it's a really wide range of sectors and organisations, and we work with employers both on a national and a regional basis. So we have engagement with large companies, and I mentioned Morgan Sindall, who work with us on a national basis, but we also deliver regional programs, which is all about promoting regional engagement. So whichever way an employer wants to work with us, we can accommodate that. And obviously, as part of the Solent LEP, we are operating this on a regional basis to pilot test the impact that virtual work experience can have on schools. If you're interested, we've got more details that will follow, but the key priority now is to find out who might want to take part, and then would be to register on our website to get access to the portal so that we can work supporting you to get those adverts live so we can get it out there to the schools that are taking part. That's everything from me. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Dawn. That was very useful, and I'm sure people are overwhelmed with the amount of information, but that's really informative. Again, reiterates it for me exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it. But for summary then, for everybody else, what we need from you is to decide whether you want to do a 1-day and or a 3-day programme, working around the school day. So usually 9 till 3, it could be a 10 till 2. It just depends on what the school day is and how your capacity lies. Ideally, a class of 30 students. Now, we say a minimum of 6. That's really for safeguarding reasons. But to reiterate as well that, you know, those students will need to meet a range of people. Now, that may be an apprentice through to chief exec, you know, talking about their career pathways. They could be involved in an activity or project. Now, that could be a question and answer session, as Dawn said, a video, a virtual tour. It might be that you want to do a recruitment activity. There's lots of things, there's lots of examples that we can support you with, but ultimately they need to be receiving feedback from you as an employer to ensure we've got that two-way engagement and really making that experience meaningful for the young people. So that's the end of the presentations. We said we would open the floor up to questions. I can't actually see if we've had anything in the chat. Will, can you tell me if we have anything, please?
Nothing yet.
Okay. In that case, then, could I ask Sarah Heasman, would you be willing to give a bit of your perspective as a school and your experience at the moment?
Morning, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just working out my video doesn't want to stay. Okay. Oh, try again. And my phone starts. Right. Hi, Sarah Heasman here. I'm a careers leader at the Gosport and Fareham Multi-Academy Trust. Just wanted to chime in with what the ladies have said this morning about virtual work experience and the value of it to students. We use Speakers for Schools experiences over the half-term holiday, purely on a voluntary basis, and got quite a few students who attended. And the feedback was really strong. And we actually had a lovely note yesterday from a parent who'd said that the student in question had had a fantastic week, and she was really pleased with the confidence that he'd built over the period of time, even team leading. He was a year 10 and he was team leading students who were older than him during the week, which was great. And she said compared to her other children who'd had standard work experience, this was a much better thing. And I think from what I can see, this is really the way to go forward. It gives our children access to companies that, you know, in Gosport we just never would have access to physically. So it gives them a huge range of choice, and I think it gives them the capacity to work in a way that everybody's going to work, you know, online and utilising these tools. So so I think, you know, the value of this is great. It gives us the capacity to put a lot more students through a very meaningful experience, and right now what they need is that skill and that confidence to go forward into the workplace. So for us, I think this is the way we're going to go in future.
Thank you, Sarah. That's great to hear, actually, and like I said, that comparison to what was a standard work experience and what those young people got from it compared to now is absolutely fantastic. Is there anyone else that would like to add comment or ask any questions? Now is your time, because we have Dawn here and willing and able to have her brain picked, I'm sure.
There is a question in the chat box, Sarah, from Steve Cornby. Please, could you give us an example of what this work experience will comprise of in a virtual environment? So I think that's probably asking to sort of really bring to life what a project could be, I think, if I'm interpreting Steve correctly. Dawn, do you want to take that? Maybe Sarah afterwards.
Can I just ask Steve just to elaborate a little bit on that? Because obviously we kind of talk broadly about a timetable. I just wonder specifically what he would be interested in hearing.
Hi there. Yeah.
Yes.
In a, I work for a construction business, Tier Construction, which I see are already on your list of partners.
Yes.
It's difficult for us to think of a project or an activity for a student to do in that kind of an environment, which would be useful to them, and well, it's something that's reasonably easy to do virtually.
Okay, there are many examples, and I probably could send you some example of the adverts. But I think what it is it's, yes, obviously you're not physically on a site, but it's really setting the scene about getting young people to understand what the potential career paths are through that organization associated with that industry. Quite often it can be really good at the beginning to have a scene setter where you have a speaker that comes, a notable speaker from your organization. Now, you might think notable has to be the CEO, but it doesn't. It could be somebody who has come through your organization starting as an apprentice and have worked their way through the ranks. And that's to kind of illustrate how they could progress their career with your organization or your industry. It's bringing in people from other departments or other teams to talk about their particular skill set, how they go about working, how what they do contributes to the bigger picture. And quite often construction companies that are doing it will build some project work around getting the young people to work with those individuals from the organization in smaller groups. We did one yesterday actually with another construction company, and it was all about, the project was about designing your house for the future. So it became a paper exercise, but it was actually getting the kids to use their imagination about how they would use skills in construction. You know, there was an element in there talking about kind of sustainability and green, and bringing all those aspects in to get them to really think about how they might design a home for the future. So you can do it as a paper exercise. Some companies also do some sort of streaming where they take people on a virtual tour of the website, you know, somebody walking around and it's being broadcast on video to the audience.
Yeah, I get the discussions from different members of the team. That's a good idea and thing. That's something that can be reasonably easily laid on, especially virtually, because you don't have to have them all in the same place. The activities you're suggesting, yeah, so we could get them to go away and research something and come up with ideas and proposals for, yeah, as you say, I mean, the example you said is something which their minds could run away with themselves, yes. Really, couldn't they? And because they're familiar with what a house is like and what it should contain, that's quite a good idea. Yeah, I understand that. So you said that there's two options. There's a day or there's a 3-day block.
Yes.
Presumably we could say put something on as the first day could be an introductory day where they get to meet lots of people and see how the company works, and the next day might be a project or a couple of projects. But you say you split them into groups.
Yeah, you can. Within the Google Classroom environment, you can move that class of 30 into what's called breakout rooms. So you can actually get them down into small groups of 5's the minimum size, 5 or 6, and then they can actually work as a group. And there's functionality in there. There's like a virtual whiteboard with virtual post-it notes, but also they can you can download documents and templates from the Google Classroom environment for them to work on at their desk. Or, you know, in that virtual environment. I mean, one of the things I've seen construction companies do in the breakout rooms is a bit of an icebreaker is they've posted a picture of a building site and got all the young people to identify all of the areas which are health and safety hazards. You know, so it's just that kind of interaction which makes it engaging, and it's just getting a happy mix of listening and participating. If it's all listen and being talked at, then you will lose that engagement. But if you can get them to get involved and kind of get their hands dirty, so to speak, then the success rate of these experiences is much greater. And they love that kind of activity as well. And as the world evolves, you know, more and more organizations like construction, people have this perception that it's all about bricks and mortar, but you know, you've got technology coming into play more and more. You've got the kind of the design element, and those are the things that might appeal to different elements within in a school year. Like, you know, that they might appeal to kind of the girls in the group more, or people that are more techie, but would never have thought about construction because they didn't really understand that there was that kind of career or job available.
Yeah.
I think the other point is, don't lose sight of the fact that you are not just a construction company or an engineering company. I mean, well, I was talking to a company this week, and they're going to put together an engineering type project, but also the HR department are going to put together a project management project and set the pupils the task of organising a recruitment fair. Because obviously, you know, not every student is and I think we often lose sight of the fact that STEM is marvelous, but there are a lot of children who STEM does not appeal to, and there are a lot of roles that don't need that kind of access. So I think about roles, you know, not necessarily at the core of your company, but all of the things that go around it, the finance, the HR, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, we've probably got departments that will deal with probably most of the subjects that are taught in the school. So yeah, that's a good point. I'm kind of feel as if I'm taking over the floor, but I've still got lots of questions. So during this 1 or 3 days, whatever it turns out to be, would there need to be somebody from our firm available all day long on the end of a phone, or on the end of the virtual portal?
Yes.
Or do we leave them to work on their own for a period?
No, you do have to have a host that is dedicated to the work experience throughout, because you have controls of the classroom, not the school. It's you as the employer. So you have to manage activity within that. So somebody has to put young people into breakout rooms, bring them back to the main classroom. You have to obviously oversee other participants that are coming into the room. So I guess think of it as, you know, if you had young people coming to your place of work, typically in a work experience, you would have somebody that will be allocated as the host for a live work experience. This is no different. You still have to have somebody that keeps an eye on things.
Okay. So that gives me 2 more questions, I'm afraid. The first one is the technology. Did we get some kind of training on how to do all of that?
You do, yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's the first one. Second one is, having had some experience just recently on mentoring, mentoring at Medina College on the island, we found that some of the students were less engaged, and we found that it's much better engagement where there is a teacher in the classroom. And in fact, you could lose the room quite easily if there wasn't. What's your view on how to deal with that situation?
It does vary. We have, I mean, there are two arguments really. One is that if you have teachers in the classroom, children also won't engage because they think they're being watched. And if they were going to a work experience in the real world, they wouldn't have had their teacher with them either. You know, they would be there as individuals. I think with regards to student behaviour, then, and Sarah might want to comment from her perspective, but that's really a briefing activity that comes from the school to the young people. We do have teachers that come in as observers during the classroom environment, may not stay all day, and my view is that probably they shouldn't stay there all day, but popping in and out is probably a good enough way to pose a threat, if you like. But if you have disruptive behaviour, the best thing about Google Classrooms is you can actually exclude somebody. And that's not against the rules. You can do that. You can lock them out of the classroom, and they then have to ask for permission to come back in. And if you get someone that is super disruptive, then you have direct line to us during the course of your work experience, and you can alert us to the fact, and that we can then loop back with the school to let them know that there's a problem. I mean, that's obviously extreme, and to be honest, that doesn't really happen very often. But I think coming back to the work experience is that it comes back to how you construct your day. And I was saying, if it's just talking at them all the time and leaving them largely unsupervised, then you will lose their attention. But the thing about Google Classrooms is there's lots of things in there where you can bring them their focus back by running a quick poll or a quick quiz, which forces them to read and look and participate and give some answers back. Sarah, I don't know whether you wanted to comment from a school's perspective. You're on mute.
I see this, and not all schools will be the same, but I think this is very much a voluntary thing. I think students will be there because they want to be. They have to apply. I don't think you can strong arm them into doing 3 days worth of virtual work experience. So hopefully the ones that turn up will be semi-motivated anyway. And I think it's the responsibility of the school to explain that this is actually a workplace and there are expectations on them in the same way as you would talk to them if they were going to a physical work experience of the way that they're going to behave. So I think that a lot of the onus is back on the school to make sure that the expectations are set quite clearly. I come from an industry background. I'm not from a school originally, and my view on work experience very much is that we expect students to behave, to commit, to turn up when they say they're going to turn up, to be there on time, and you know, I think that needs to be made clear to them.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, the mentoring group that I experienced, probably half of them didn't want to be there, and the rest were quite neutral on their views, and maybe influenced by others as well. So, and maybe the age as well of the student is going to make a difference. I mean, the age of student that we're looking at is what?
So they're year 10, so they're sort of 14, 15. So starting there, it's the first year of their GCSEs.
I see, yeah. Okay, no further questions, Your Honour, rather.
Thank you.
Steve, I don't know if it's of any use to you as well. I know Go Construct, they have a lot of resources, particularly for the construction sector, that you might want to refer to. And as we mentioned earlier, you know, if you put in a video content, whether that is, again, around the health and safety element, and you need the students to kind of pick up on that. I think, as John said, you know, mixing it up, getting that engagement and that participation is really, really key.
Yeah.
Are there any, sorry.
I was just going to ask a really quick question for Dawn, actually. Is there a sort of something that speakers for schools provide in terms of sort of like a mini guide to give employers you know, top tips and sort of to help them generate the ideas? Because I think quite often, once they start the conversation, the ideas about what they can do will flow, but they need a little bit of sort of a framework which them to, you know, to understand what is meant by a project, what is meant by you know, task sector. I just wondered if there's any sort of further information you can expect them to sort of whet their appetite and help them you know, put together a resource. You're on mute, sorry.
No, there's nothing that comes from schools because there's no direct interaction normally between the school and the employer. This is slightly different because we're doing a pilot, obviously, with you with a particular school group in mind. But we can signpost employers to what actually constitutes a good work experience. And there's an enhanced level of service that we can provide for those that are interested, that want more guidance and more input. And there are, as Sarah has mentioned, there are documents out there where you can refer to what makes a good work experience. But we do have a number of documents ourselves that go to employers that help you shape what a work experience day looks like. It kind of gives you some pointers on how to construct it.
Brilliant, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions in the chat? I can't see, I'm afraid. Yeah. Okay, well, following on from that then, so your call to action, ladies and gentlemen, then, as a priority, we need you to register at the Speakers for Schools portal, consider your offer, whether that be a 1-day or 3-day or both, as the case may be, and place your opportunity adverts. As Dawn said, we don't have to have your programme set in stone at that point. It just really is an overview of what you could be doing and the skills that young people may be developing with their time with you. And then ultimately, it's then collaborating with us basically to design your programme and obviously attend your portal and Google Classroom training, because that's where you'll get support in how to roll out your programme and what you can do within the classroom, whether that be, as Dawn said, excluding somebody, running a poll, doing a quiz, so on and so forth. The options are endless. So here are our contact details. We will be circulating the recording of this session later today, but there are details. If you want to drop us an email, please do. Hopefully you've got as much information as you need. You've had the opportunity to pick Dawn's brains as much as possible, and well done, Steve, for asking those questions, and thank you to Sarah as well for giving the school's perspective. So all that's left for me to say is thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you on the virtual work experience. And we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody.